At a family dinner, my parents suddenly turned to me. "You're single and have no children. You should give your house to your sister. Give her the keys and move out." The words hit me like a freight train. The clinking of silverware stopped. Everyone's eyes were on me. My sister Patricia sat there with this expectant look, like she'd already mentally decorated my living room. I said no, of course, but after a few days I woke up to 47 missed calls and a text that made my blood run cold. Amanda already agreed to help Patricia. We're meeting with the realtor Tuesday. They weren't asking anymore. They were telling the world I'd already said yes. If your family demands your biggest asset because you're single, cut them off before they destroy your life. Because what happened next showed me the terrifying truth about the people who were supposed to love me most. My name is Amanda Wilson, and for 6 years I worked 70-hour weeks, skipped vacations, ate ramen for dinner so I could save every penny for my dream house. A modest 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy, but it was mine. The day I got those keys, I cried in my car for 20 minutes. I'd done it. Completely alone, no help from anyone. But apparently, being successful and single made me the perfect target. Growing up, I was always the reliable one. While Patricia got pregnant at 19 and moved back home with her boyfriend, I was getting scholarships and working part-time jobs. When Patricia needed formula money, guess who Mom called? When Dad's truck broke down, guess who helped with the payment? I thought this was what families did. We help each other. But looking back, the help only flowed one direction. Patricia was the golden child with her 2 kids, struggling to make ends meet. Every family gathering, it was, "Patricia works so hard as a mother, and Patricia deserves nice things." Meanwhile, I was the scapegoat who had it easy because I was single. Never mind that I'd worked 3 jobs through college while Patricia partied. Never mind that my success came from sacrifice, not luck. The signs were always there. At every holiday dinner, Dad would casually ask about my salary. Mom would comment on how big my house was for just one person. Patricia would joke about how I was hoarding space while her family crammed into a 1-bedroom apartment. They made my achievements sound like moral failures. According to research, 27% of Americans have cut contact with at least one family member. I used to think that was extreme. Family is family, right? Wrong. Some families operate like emotional vampires, and I was their favorite meal. The gaslighting was subtle but constant. "Family comes first, Amanda." "R2, we've never asked you for anything before. Don't you want to help your sister?" They weaponized my love for them against me. Every boundary I tried to set was met with guilt and manipulation. I'd spent years financing their emergencies. The loan for Patricia's car that was never repaid. The temporary help with their mortgage that became permanent. The family vacations where somehow I ended up paying for everyone. They called it love. I now recognize it as financial abuse. But the house demand was different. This wasn't asking for a few $100s. They wanted me to hand over my life's work to someone who'd never sacrificed for anything. And they expected me to smile and do it willingly. What I didn't know was how far they'd already gone to make it happen. I woke up that Tuesday morning to a phone buzzing like an angry wasp. 47 missed calls. The texts started reasonable. "Call us back." Then demanding, "We need to talk now." Then threatening, "You're making a huge mistake." But the worst text came from my cousin Michael. "Why didn't you tell me you were giving Patricia your house? That's so generous." My stomach dropped. I hadn't told Michael anything because I wasn't giving anyone my house, which meant they were spreading lies, probably, to make backing out impossible. Once the whole family knew about my generous gesture, saying no would make me look like the villain. I scrolled through Patricia's social media. There it was, a post from that morning. "So blessed that family takes care of family. Some exciting news coming soon." The comments were full of congratulations and heart emojis. My own mother had commented, "Amanda has such a good heart." They were creating a narrative where I'd already agreed, where changing my mind would devastate poor Patricia and her children, where I'd be the monster who took back a promise. My hands shook as I called the realtor they'd mentioned, Jenkins and Associates. "Oh yes," the receptionist chirped. "The Wilson property consultation is scheduled for 2 p.m. today. Your mother seemed very excited about the family transfer." Family transfer. They'd made an appointment to transfer my house without telling me. The manipulation was breathtaking in its scope. They hadn't just asked for my house, they'd created an entire alternate reality where I'd already given it away. They'd told friends, family, even professionals. The pressure to go along with their fiction would be enormous. That's when I realized this wasn't a request that got out of hand. This was a coordinated attack on my autonomy and financial security, and I was completely unprepared. But something shifted in that moment of recognition. The victim mentality I'd carried for years cracked apart. I wasn't going to be their ATM anymore. I wasn't going to sacrifice my future for their comfort. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let them steal my house through emotional terrorism. I canceled the realtor appointment with a simple message. The property owner did not authorize this consultation. Do not contact our family again. Then I changed my locks. If they wanted to play games with my house, they'd find out quickly that I was done playing by their rules. The real Amanda Wilson was finally waking up, and she was furious. The scared, people-pleasing daughter was gone. In her place was someone who understood that love doesn't demand your life's work as proof. Real family doesn't manipulate and scheme to steal from you. And sometimes the people who claim to love you most are the ones actively working to destroy you. My phone rang again. This time I answered. "Amanda," Mom's voice was shrill. "What do you mean you canceled the appointment? Patricia is counting on this." "Patricia can count on getting her own house," I said calmly. "With her own money." The silence stretched for 10 seconds. Then, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" And there it was, the equation that had controlled my life for 30 years. Love equals payment. Family equals debt. Success equals guilt. "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked, "because I have receipts for what I've done for you." That's when I started documenting everything. Every loan that became a gift. Every emergency that became my responsibility. Every manipulation disguised as love. I was building a case, though I didn't know it yet. I was gathering evidence for the war they'd already declared. The evidence was everywhere once I started looking. Bank statements showing thousands in loans never repaid. Text messages full of guilt and manipulation. Social media posts where they portrayed me as the family bank account. Years of financial abuse, hiding in plain sight. But the most damning evidence was their response to my refusal. Normal families have conversations about misunderstandings. Healthy families respect boundaries. But my family, they went nuclear. The flying monkeys started immediately. Aunts and uncles calling to tell me how disappointed they were. Cousins messaging about family loyalty. Family friends sharing stories about my selfishness. They'd mobilized their entire network to pressure me into compliance. Each call was a variation of the same script. Family is everything. Patricia needs this more than you. Don't break your parents' hearts. What would Grandma think? But here's what they didn't expect. I started recording. Every call, every voicemail, every guilt trip. I documented their manipulation in real time. When Aunt Susan called crying about Patricia's children being homeless, they weren't. I had it on tape. When Uncle Bob threatened to knock sense into me, I saved the voicemail. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was building an archive of their true character. My cousin Michael was different. He called not to pressure me, but to apologize. I had no idea they were lying about you agreeing, he said. That's messed up. Turns out he'd been dealing with his own financial manipulation from the family. We started comparing notes. That's when I learned about the family group chat I wasn't included in. The one where they'd been planning this house grab for months. Where they'd discussed my finances, my dating life, my selfishness in graphic detail. Michael showed me screenshots that made my skin crawl. Amanda thinks she's so successful, but she's just lucky, Patricia had written. She doesn't even have kids to support. It's not fair. She's always been selfish, Mom had replied. Ever since she was little. We need to make her understand family obligations. The house thing might work, Dad had added. She's too weak to say no if we all pressure her together. Too weak to say no. That's what they thought of me, a pushover who could be manipulated with enough guilt and family pressure. Someone whose hard work and sacrifice meant nothing compared to their wants. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I contacted 3 professionals that week, a property lawyer, a therapist, and a financial advisor. The lawyer confirmed what I knew. They had 0 legal claim to my house, and their attempted manipulation could constitute harassment. The therapist helped me understand that what I'd experienced was financial abuse, disguised as family obligation. The financial advisor helped me protect my assets from any future manipulation attempts. But the most valuable ally was my best friend Sarah. She'd watched my family dynamics for years and had been waiting for me to see what she'd always known. They were users, not lovers. I'm proud of you for finally saying no, she told me. I was starting to think they'd bleed you dry before you figured it out. Sarah became my reality check and emotional support. When the guilt started creeping in, because it always does when you're breaking free from lifelong programming, she reminded me of all the times they'd taken advantage. All the sacrifices I'd made that went unappreciated. All the times they'd chosen Patricia's comfort over my well-being. The stage was set. I had evidence, allies, legal protection, and most importantly, clarity about who they really were. The scared little girl who lived to please her family was gone. In her place was a woman who understood her worth and refused to accept less. They wanted to play manipulation games with my house, my money, my life. Fine. But this time I was playing to win. And I had advantages they didn't know about yet. I chose Patricia's birthday party for the confrontation. 3 months of evidence collection had given me everything I needed. and I felt emotionally bulletproof with my support team backing me. The timing was perfect. Maximum family audience, public setting, and Patricia would be expecting celebration, not accountability. Sarah and Michael came with me as moral support. The lawyer had briefed me on harassment laws. The therapist had prepared me for their predictable reactions. My financial advisor had secured all my accounts. I was ready for war disguised as a family dinner. Patricia's apartment was cramped, decorations clearly bought with money she didn't have. Mom had made her famous lasagna. Dad was grilling burgers on their tiny balcony. The whole scene looked like a Norman Rockwell painting of family togetherness. Too bad it was built on lies and manipulation. Amanda, Mom hugged me like nothing had happened. We're so glad you came to your senses about the house situation. There it was. They were still operating under the delusion that I'd eventually cave, that all their pressure and manipulation would wear me down until I handed over my keys with a smile. Actually, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, I came to clarify some things about that situation. The room got quiet. Patricia looked up from cutting her cake, confused. Dad stopped mid-burger flip. Uncle Bob and Aunt Susan exchanged glances. They could sense the shift in energy but couldn't place it yet. I pulled out a manila folder, thick with documents. I've been doing some research into our family's financial history over the past few years. Thought Patricia's birthday was the perfect time to share what I found. Amanda, Mom warned, this isn't the time or place. Actually, it's the perfect time, I interrupted. Since you've all been discussing my finances behind my back for months. I opened the folder and started reading. June 2019, $2,500 emergency loan for Patricia's car repair, never repaid. August 2019, $1,800 for Dad's truck payment, never repaid. December 2019, $3,200 for family Christmas vacation that somehow became my responsibility, never repaid. The list went on and on. 3 years of documented financial abuse, disguised as family emergencies. By the time I finished, the total was over $15,000, not including interest or the emotional cost of their manipulation. Those weren't loans, Patricia said weakly. That was family helping family. Funny, I replied, because I have text messages where you called them loans, and promises to pay me back. Would you like me to read those too? The room was dead silent except for the sound of burgers burning on the grill. But the house situation is different, I continued, because this time you didn't just manipulate me directly. You created an entire conspiracy to steal my property through social pressure and lies. I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. This is from last Tuesday's call with Mom. Her voice filled the room. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Patricia is counting on this house. Then I played the recording of Dad's threat. You better think carefully about your family relationships, Amanda. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. And Patricia's social media post claiming I'd already agreed to give her my house. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, their own words condemning them in their own voices. This is what financial abuse looks like, I announced. Years of taking advantage of someone's love and manipulating them with guilt, creating false narratives to pressure compliance, threatening relationships when the victim finally says no. Uncle Bob tried to defend them. Amanda, family is supposed to help each other. Help goes both ways, Uncle Bob. I cut him off. Can you tell me one time, just one, when this family helped me with anything? when I was working 3 jobs through college, when I was saving for my house down payment, when I was sick with pneumonia last year. Silence. But here's what really opened my eyes, I continued, pulling out Michael's screenshots. The family group chat that I wasn't included in, where you've been planning to manipulate me out of my house for months. I started reading their messages aloud. Patricia's complaints about my success, Mom's strategies for emotional manipulation, Dad's assessment that I was too weak to say no. With each message, Patricia got smaller in her chair. Mom's face turned red. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear. The extended family stared in horror at the calculated cruelty of their words. "So here's my birthday gift to Patricia," I said, pulling out one final document. A detailed invoice for all the money this family has taken from me over the years, with interest, total amount due $23,947. I set the paper on the table next to her birthday cake. Of course, if you can't pay, I understand. Family finances can be tight, but in that case, I think we're even on any future help requests. The explosion was immediate and predictable. "How dare you?" Mom screamed. "After everything we've sacrificed for you." "What sacrifices?" I asked calmly. "Be specific. We raised you, we fed you, we put a roof over your head." "Until I was 18. That's called parenting, not grounds for lifelong indentured servitude." Patricia started crying. "I have children, Amanda. I need that house more than you do." "Then buy your own house, with your own money, like I did." Dad tried intimidation. "You're going to regret this, young lady. Family is all you have in this world. Family that manipulates and steals from me. I'll take my chances alone." The guilt trips, the threats, the victim playing, it all came flooding out exactly as my therapist had predicted. But their words bounced off me like water off a windshield. I'd heard it all before. I'd prepared for every manipulation tactic in their playbook. Sarah squeezed my arm supportively. Michael nodded approvingly. Even some of the extended family looked uncomfortable with my parents' reactions. The truth has a way of making people's real character visible. I stood up to leave. "My lawyer has copies of all this documentation. Any further harassment will be handled through legal channels. Any attempts to spread lies about me will be met with defamation action. And just so we're clear, my house is not, has never been, and will never be, available for transfer to anyone in this family." As I walked toward the door, I heard Patricia wailing about her children and her needs. Mom was calling me ungrateful and selfish. Dad was making vague threats about consequences. But I also heard something else. Aunt Susan quietly asking Uncle Bob, "Did you know they had a group chat without Amanda?" And Cousin Jennifer whispering, "That's a lot of money they never paid back." The seeds of doubt were planted. The perfect family facade was cracking. Their immediate response was exactly what I'd expected. A full-scale character assassination campaign, designed to isolate me and force compliance through social pressure. Within hours, my phone was buzzing, with calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. The script was obviously coordinated. "I'm so disappointed in you, Amanda. Family should forgive and forget. Patricia's children will suffer because of your selfishness." But I was ready. I'd anticipated this reaction and prepared accordingly. To each caller, I offered the same response. "I have documentation of everything. Would you like me to send you the evidence before you continue defending their behavior?" Most hung up immediately. A few asked for the evidence out of curiosity. None called back to defend my parents after seeing the proof. The smear campaign expanded to social media. Patricia posted about family betrayal and unexpected selfishness from people you trust. Mom shared vague posts about ungrateful children and what's wrong with young people today. So I posted my own response, not emotional or defensive, but factual. A simple statement. Some family members have been spreading inaccurate information about my personal finances and property. I have documentation of all financial transactions and communications for anyone genuinely interested in facts rather than gossip. The response was immediate. Friends who'd heard the family's version reached out for my side. Several offered support. A few shared their own stories of family financial abuse. The narrative was shifting, but they weren't done. Patricia's husband, Mark, who'd been silent during the birthday confrontation, called me privately. "Amanda, I had no idea how far this had gone," he said. "Patricia told me you'd volunteered to help, not that they were pressuring you. I'm sorry. This whole thing is messed up." That conversation revealed something crucial. Patricia had been lying to her own husband about the house scheme. She'd told him I'd offered, that it was my idea, that I was excited to help. Mark had been planning their move based on lies. More cracks appeared daily. Family friends started asking questions. Extended relatives who'd initially supported Patricia began backing away as the truth spread. The elaborate manipulation network they'd built was collapsing under the weight of evidence. The most satisfying moment came 2 weeks later when my cousin Jennifer called. "Amanda, I owe you an apology. After you left Patricia's party, I asked Mom some questions about that group chat. She showed it to me. I'm disgusted by what they said about you." Jennifer had always been Patricia's biggest supporter. If she was turning, others would follow. "I had no idea they'd been taking money from you for years," she continued. "That's not family, that's exploitation. And the house thing? That's straight-up attempted theft through manipulation." The family power structure was shifting. People were choosing sides based on evidence rather than emotion, and increasingly they were choosing mine. But I knew the real consequences were just beginning. Natural karma was about to catch up with their years of manipulation and financial abuse. The natural consequences of their behavior started manifesting in ways I never could have orchestrated myself. When you build your life on manipulation and lies, reality eventually catches up. Patricia's marriage was the first casualty. Mark had started questioning everything once he learned about the lies surrounding my house. How many other things had Patricia manipulated him about? How many financial decisions had been based on false premises? They separated 3 weeks after the birthday party. Mark moved in with his brother, taking the kids every other weekend. Patricia was suddenly facing single motherhood with no financial safety net and no house from Amanda to fall back on. Mom and Dad's relationship with the extended family deteriorated rapidly. Uncle Bob and Aunt Susan stopped hosting them for Sunday dinners after learning about the group chat. Cousin Jennifer publicly supported me on social media. Family friends began declining their invitations. The social consequences were swift and severe. When you're exposed as manipulative, people start questioning every interaction they've had with you. How many other family members had they badmouthed behind closed doors? How many other financial favors had they extracted through guilt and pressure? My parents found themselves increasingly isolated, their reputation in the family and community permanently damaged by their own documented words and actions. But the most poetic justice came through professional channels. Dad worked in sales at a local car dealership. When his behavior toward family members became known in the community, particularly the attempted house manipulation, it affected his professional reputation. People don't trust manipulators to sell them cars, his manager apparently told him during a performance review. His sales numbers dropped significantly as word spread about his character issues. Mom faced her own consequences at the church where she'd been treasurer for 15 years. When other members learned about the documented financial abuse of her daughter, questions arose about her handling of church funds. She wasn't accused of wrongdoing, but the trust was broken. She quietly resigned from the position. Patricia's situation grew more desperate by the week. The apartment she'd been sharing with Mark was too expensive for her alone. She had to move back in with our parents, the same people whose manipulation had destroyed her marriage. The irony was perfect. In trying to get my house for Patricia, they'd created circumstances that forced her back into their home anyway. Except now it was crowded, tension-filled, and temporary, instead of the spacious sanctuary they'd tried to steal from me. Meanwhile, my life flourished in ways I never expected. The energy I'd been spending on family management was redirected toward personal growth and professional advancement. 6 months after the birthday party confrontation, I got the promotion I'd been working toward for 2 years. My boss specifically mentioned my improved focus and confidence as factors in the decision. Cutting toxic energy from my life had freed up mental and emotional resources I didn't even know I'd been depleting. The financial impact was even more dramatic. Without the constant drain of family emergencies and loans, my savings rate doubled. I was able to increase my retirement contributions, invest in home improvements, and still have money left over for travel and experiences. I took my first real vacation in 5 years, a solo trip to Ireland that I'd been dreaming about since college. Walking through Dublin without a single guilt-inducing phone call from family felt like breathing freely for the first time in decades. But the deepest satisfaction came from unexpected sources. Other family abuse survivors started reaching out after hearing my story. Women who'd been financially exploited by parents, siblings, even adult children. People who'd felt crazy for resenting family members who just needed help. I became accidentally connected to a community of people who understood the unique pain of family betrayal. We shared strategies for boundary setting, evidence documentation, and emotional recovery. My nightmare had become a resource for others facing similar situations. The psychological healing was profound. Years of therapy had helped me understand the manipulation intellectually, but taking action had healed something deeper. I'd proven to myself that I could protect my interests, maintain my boundaries, and survive family rejection. My self-respect was fully restored. I no longer second-guessed my instincts or made excuses for other people's bad behavior. The people-pleasing daughter who'd sacrifice anything for family approval was gone forever. With my family toxicity eliminated, I had space for authentic relationships to flourish. My friendship with Sarah deepened as I became more emotionally available and less crisis-driven. I started dating without the constant background stress of family drama affecting my energy and mood. Professional relationships improved dramatically. Colleagues noticed my increased confidence and decisiveness. I stopped over-explaining decisions or seeking excessive approval, traits I developed from years of justifying myself to manipulative family members. The house that had caused all the conflict became my sanctuary in ways I'd never imagined. Every room represented my hard work and sacrifice. Every improvement was an investment in my chosen future. No one could take it from me because I'd learned to protect what was mine. I started hosting dinner parties for friends, real friends who celebrated my successes instead of resenting them, people who brought wine instead of problems, conversations that built me up instead of tearing me down. The contrast was stark. This was what healthy relationships look like. This was what I'd been missing while pouring energy into people who saw my love as weakness and my success as their entitlement. A year after the birthday party, Patricia attempted to reconcile. She called crying, claiming she'd learned her lesson and missed our relationship. The old Amanda might have caved to the tears and emotion. The new Amanda asked for specifics. What exactly did you learn? What will you do differently? How will you demonstrate that the manipulation and financial abuse won't continue? Patricia couldn't answer. She'd expected tears and forgiveness, not accountability, and changed behavior. The call ended when she realized I wouldn't accept vague promise and emotional manipulation as substitutes for genuine change. That conversation confirmed what I'd suspected. They missed what I provided, not who I was. They wanted their ATM back, not a relationship with their daughter and sister. My parents made their own reconciliation attempt 6 months later, triggered by Dad's retirement and sudden realization that their golden years would be spent with no support from their most successful child. But their approach revealed they'd learned nothing. "We forgive you for the misunderstanding at Patricia's party," Mom said during an awkward phone call. "We know you were just upset and were ready to move past it." They forgive me for their manipulation and theft attempt, for their lies and conspiracy, for their documented financial abuse. "I appreciate the call," I replied, "but I'm not interested in moving past anything. I'm interested in accountability, apologies, and changed behavior. Until that happens, we have nothing to discuss." They hung up angry, still convinced they were the victims in this situation. 3 years later, my life is unrecognizable from the woman who sat in shock at that family dinner. I own 2 properties now, my original house and a rental investment. My net worth has tripled without the family drain. I'm in a healthy relationship with someone who celebrates my success instead of resenting it. Patricia is still living with our parents, working part-time retail, struggling with the consequences of choices she made based on manipulation instead of reality. Her ex-husband Mark has built a stable, drama-free life with his new partner. My parents are isolated from much of the extended family, their reputation permanently damaged by their own documented behavior. They've learned that manipulation has consequences, though they've never accepted responsibility for those consequences. I don't feel guilty about their situation. I didn't create their problems. I just stopped enabling their solutions. I didn't destroy their relationships. I just stopped pretending their behavior was acceptable. The woman who was too weak to say no built a fortress of boundaries that protects everything she values. The daughter who lived to please others now lives to fulfill her own potential. The family member who sacrificed everything for people who appreciated nothing now invests in relationships that multiply rather than drain her energy. This is what life looks like when you stop accepting crumbs and start demanding the respect you deserve. When you realize that blood relation doesn't justify abuse and love without respect is just manipulation wearing a disguise. My house, the one they tried to steal, represents more than property now. It's proof that I can protect what I build, evidence that my judgment is sound and my boundaries are real. A symbol of the life I created when I finally understood my worth. They wanted me to believe that family obligation meant infinite sacrifice and silent acceptance of mistreatment. I learned that real love includes boundaries, mutual respect, and reciprocal care. The scared little girl who lived for family approval died the day I played those recordings at Patricia's birthday party. In her place stands a woman who knows the difference between love and manipulation, between helping and enabling, between family and people who happen to share your DNA. And that woman sleeps peacefully every night in her own house, surrounded by people who earned their place in her life through respect, authenticity, and genuine care. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to participate in your own destruction. Sometimes protecting yourself is the most generous thing you can do, for yourself and for people who might learn from your example that they don't have to accept unacceptable treatment either. The little girl who wanted family approval is gone. The woman who demands family respect is here to stay.